Welcome, welcome to Exposing the Gods, a podcast that is released monthly, presented to you from the expression of the integrated consciousness of the goddess Isis from ancient Egypt, that is the I am presence of that which I am here in this incarnation as Geeia Ariati. This is a podcast of exposing the history, the truth, through the remembrance journey and through the path of what is required for reconciliation to clear the past distortions and bring through a clear expression of our future generations' possibility with consciousness. This specific episode is Truth Speakers, the gods that forgot. A journey of my remembrance, a journey of that of Isis and her challenges with the distortions around purity. As a representative of the law of one, from the very initial points in time, but we'll speak from the point of ancient Egypt as a bringer of the Emerald Order and the law of one. I have journeyed much challenge in relation to gods that forgot their mission, gods that got lost in the distortion templates and in the desire for power, control, and to continue the 7 deadly sins of the human experience and to relinquish that of what they came here to be. As an individual that did not forget her path, yet continued to have attachments to the original mission, there has been many confusions of how to be a pillar of light through my incarnation cycles. What that has created is the commitments with divine counterparts and original soul groups in the mission that we had come to, with the angelic representatives of the telepathic communications, and the directions were misunderstood, interpreted through distortion of separation, and had resulted in many empires that created the very thing that we did not come here to be in service of. This journey for me in the now moment has been one of revisiting each and every distortion and timeline. The heartbreak, the Satanism, the demonic possession, the wrath, the control, the sorcery, the black magic, and the inversions and the separation consciousness and technologies that were created. This has been a journey of the last 2 years, meeting every single day a moment of consciousness that was manipulated to entrap the human race. The human race being that of a group of individual beings that don't even recognize the amount of fragmentation that they live by. Through this journey, I've journeyed with many of the high-profile, high-player gods that have been reincarnated at this point in time, with the intention to shift from the consciousness of the 3-dimensional expression of humanity into the 5th-dimensional consciousness of humanity. Yet once again, the gods have forgotten. Once again, even as they remember, they mutate what they remember to continue the path of distortion, disruption, power, and entrapment. This is a truth that although we all came down with a role to share and to reconcile the past into the now moment of a new future, we are repeating that which would be considered history. We are repeating that which has been some choosing to reconcile their karma, some choosing to still be controlled by it. And what that means on the collective level is that the roles, the blueprints, the pathways, the creations, and the mission directive has dramatically changed and shifted because the gods have forgotten. And you cannot lead a new earth by leaders that do not remember the codes, the templates, and the roles that they were supposed to play in the reconciliation into unity consciousness. My path has been to be the purifier, the activator, and the guide to the highest timeline. What that has meant for me is rapid purification, rapid remembrance, and an aspect of journeying through these consciousness and timelines through the pits of distortion and not through the lens of expansion and creation. My journey through this has meant many days of debilitation, many hours of laying in a space of altered states of consciousness where my cellular structure purged the densities of the collective counterparts and the earth from my body. Many hours of tears of Isis and the distortions of her purity and her commitment to the mission forward. Her biggest detriment has been that at all costs she will speak truth, expose the distortions, and assist in the purification of the collective whole. However, as I am also human. That distortion meant much manipulation, much challenge of meeting contrast in the name of purification, turbulence to kill off what can no longer maintain life. This is not the highest path. Although I chose this path because at the time it was the highest path, that doesn't have to be the way now. We do not have to revisit karma in the way that has been because the timelines have been reconciled. And the gods that are forgetting are no longer a part of the new mission directive. They have been released and relinquished of their roles. This means that they have effectively chosen the path of dissension. Dissension being that of the patriarchal and the matriarchal constructs of a consciousness that is not aligned with the mission directive of unity or evolving into a fifth dimensional expression of consciousness. How that plays out is that each individual god that came here with an energy signature, an opportunity to bring a template, a gift, a modality, a high level of light technology, has to be gifted to a new individual representative. One of the beings that doesn't hold this remembrance, that doesn't hold the codes or the templates of the original God, but are a part of the bloodline. The bloodline is extremely important and imperative to know, because the purification of that bloodline is the only way to ensure that this information is held, anchored, and brought through in its purest form moving forward. These gods, goddesses that I've journeyed with have completely left my vortex of experience. However, I have spent intense amounts of hours in the remembering to purify my own consciousness and to reclaim the technologies and realign the structures of the geometric patterning of the earth, the quantum field, and the firmament that has suppressed our bandwidth. Isis was not only and is not only demonized in this reality by these gods specifically that are choosing dissension or a false light narrative that will eventually send them into a descended aspect to find truth. That her teachings, in the holistic representation of the clear conduit that she is, that I am, has been manipulated in multiple timelines, and so there is a template and a hologram that exists over my being from outside sources. That means that if you are choosing truth, you see me in truth. If you are choosing the illusion, you will see me through the illusion. This is beneficial and also damaging. At the moment, it serves its purpose and it will retain and stay intact. It is the consciousness that has been created based on these gods and how they perceive me through time-space continuum. A hologram construct that has been created that sits outside of my being, that only those worthy, only those that have evolved to a certain point of their own pure-hearted intention and purity can see that of what I offer. This means that this specific technology mirrors a distorted aspect of what would be considered Isis's essence into the consciousness of the receiver through the eyes of the individual that is coming from the distorted expression. This hologram technology is a false matrix program that, through these powerful beings of time-space continuum and every thought, feeling, belief, distortion, and any experience that they've had with Isis, has created an universe that effectively is their projection of who she be. But it is not the truth. That truth can only be seen by one willing to see the truth through the eyes of purity for the path forward. This protects the collective whole from the distortions of the gods that are currently choosing dissension. Because if you are here and you feel, see and sense me as a truth speaker, then you are not going to get manipulated and moved by those that do not have your best heart or interest of the collective whole. If you are still questioning my integrity, if you are still questioning the purity that I am, if you are questioning what I have come to know and express and be, it is because you are still sitting in the distortions of your own God complex and mutations. If you see, sense, feel, and believe the projections of another that I am something other than what I say I am, it's because you are entrapped in this false matrix program. You are entrapped in the distortion of the false God, capital G-O-D. True one source, God source creator, the law of one is capital G, lowercase o-D. This mutation has most of the collective entrapped in this imprisonment. This imprisonment programming creates false narratives, holograms of consciousness, cloned consciousness, and all aspects of reality that are mutated in a way that you perceive or see something that is not real. That you stay in the not self and that you are controlled. Unlocking and breaking yourself free from this doesn't have to be as hard as it was for me. Breaking yourself free from this can be done in a declaration of truth, to ensure that above all costs, no matter what you have to meet internally, externally, that you are here for that truth, the one God source creator, and you are willing to release all else that is not that, and to feel that within each cell of your being on all layers of your consciousness. This has to be chosen. Otherwise, what takes place is the collective whole continues to run by the false matrix program of God that was created by a group of beings that came here to bring the law of one and forgot why they came. In that forgetting, they have intentionally demonized those that are here to bring the light. They have caused pain and suffering to fragment their spirit. They have controlled them. They have had multiple levels of technology, layers of consciousness in moments where heartbreak for a being of light in a reality of density doesn't take much to cause a fragmentation. And in that fragmentation and vulnerability, there is a point of entry to manipulate that consciousness. It takes much courage to step away and to be the light of purity and truth. For the goddess Isis, for me, that was hard work, and I did not maintain purity in Egypt. There is an original podcast that shares some of my story. There is an expression of what she be, but there is so many layers to this being that it will take many of these expressions to share who she really was. Through her experience and her distortion in purity, she was entrapped into the patriarchal construct. During that entrapment to Osiris being that of a being that was a cloned hologram that was created in the mutation of the energy consciousness of that which goes by the name of Marduk, and also his original consciousness, that being the dark matter consciousness, well beyond this reality and galaxy and the different creation forms he's had. Cloned and placed a false inversion energy signature of the original Osiris. The original Osiris was directly connected to Thoth and to Hermes, but the one that we know of is not the truth. Isis didn't know that. Because when you hit matter, it's hard to interpret truth to illusion because you are not used to the way the frequencies move through your physical vessel and your experience. So the resonance is still there, yet the distortion is confusing. And when you have been programmed to believe and know, as women, as the queens, that the male hold a higher evolution of consciousness that you are in service to, then you are in service to them. This is a part of being in service to God, is that what God has created, you surrender and commit to. And when you start to manipulate these truths, trinities, and different aspects of creation, you start to mutate the infinity symbol by placing different consciousness together rather than allowing for the natural course. You create many ways that it doesn't make sense to what you're choosing and it feels off, but you cannot interpret it because it looks like truth. Our reality has many of these false prophets, these false modalities, these beings that are speaking, saying, but they look like truth. But do they feel like that holistic knowing? And it takes time to know truth from illusion. But if you declare it, you will see it, you will be it, you will become it. However, I did not know this. And in my reign with Osiris, I conducted many sacred ceremonies, temple arts in the name of purity that were not pure. I created fragmentations through these temples, through these gods, that fragmented the energies of the feminine, the masculine, that held the codes, the information that created the Mason churches, satanic churches, and was connected into the pedophilia rings and cannibalism. There is aspects here that go as far as feeding the Illuminati magic in the name of purity without even realizing. All in the commitment to the service of God through the name and the awareness that the kings came with a higher evolved consciousness, but they forgot who they were. And so this powerful consciousness that forgot, fragmented, manipulated over time and space, has created many distortions. The men in the now moment that are here to lead us as the kings do not hold these fragmentations. The men that are here to lead us as the new leaders have not been kings. They have not held this level of power. They have been the ones that have been at the detriment of these distortions. They are the ones that have been in service to their kings and the queens. They are here to rise. They are not the gods that have been. The gods that have been are stepping down. We are leaving. We are remembering so that we can pass on our knowledge and information, and those that are still in this space, that are not choosing the highest good of God Source Creator and to bring back the law of one, they are descending and disappearing in whatever form that is. However, they will be in rebellion. No one wants to watch their empire fall. Through this distortion of the patriarchal construct, the goddess Isis ended up having multiple partners and multiple reigns where her abilities and gifts were used. She also was a queen that sat in devotion to Amun-Ra. She had connections to Set. And she also was in service through resistance to Akhenaten. That she journeyed many experiences. The fall of her came through much distortion. Thousands, just over 1,005 years of distortion before a transition point took place for her. Desperation. This is not the first time her consciousness has been in desperation for purification, and she made choices that were not aligned with the highest good of all beings, but felt like the only option. Isis is, I am, responsible for 2 of the major deluges. Isis's tears, although spoken about, hold this sweet, romantic purification expression, were not so innocent. At the time of the closing of Akhenaten's reign, recognizing that the priestesses and the goddess had been mutated and manipulated under the one god, they had coerced and manipulated the people. They have changed the dynamics of seeing equality and each energy signature as equal and part of the one whole, and to only honor the god Ra through Akhenaten, that no other way could be found, that you must meet this being to receive God. We can see this as the mutation that has taken place with Yeshua aka in this reality what they refer to as Jesus. Yeshua, and the name of his purity was also mutated for control, to continue these constructs of you must meet God through this and there is no other way. The creation of churches and the creation of monetary exchange to meet that of what you are, to divide and to conquer. Akhenaten, also known as Osiris, who held two consciousnesses in ancient Egypt, known also as Marduk, and also as the consciousness that goes by the name of Satan for the majority of our history, which is no longer in reign of the control room of hell. There, in his reign and the fall of Egypt, Isis came to a place of full transcendent remembrance, where she realized her distortions in the name of God, where she realized that she was not being of purity, and that the gods and the goddesses had forgotten their way. There was chaos, there was wrath, there was Satanism, demonism, war. The 7 deadly sins was what we knew, and it was justified through the intellect and the higher levels of consciousness that manipulated, gaslighted, and confused each and every one of us. Through this moment of transcendent receiving, she went to each and every one of her soul group and she begged them to remember. She begged each and every one of them to remember why they came, to remember the truth of who they are. And each and every one of them turned her away, wronged her, shamed her, demonized her, projected onto her, and told her that she was not seeing the truth. The final expression of the person that she begged to was the goddess Sekhmet, who was well into the wrath and the war, but their soul sister connection and their deep love for each other, there was hope that she would remember through their sacred pure heart, through their essence. If she could allow for just one of these gods and goddesses to remember, then something could change. That was not the response that she received. And in that moment of heartbreak, down on her hands and knees, begging for her sister to remember her purity, and being turned away and scoffed at, only to fly off and create more war. Isis's heart broke and her tears spilled. She cried. cried and cried and cried until she became angry and she saw an opportunity. She saw an opportunity that she had seen before to eradicate and purify the lands of the distortions that were taking place. An opportunity that she took in a time where the human experiment had already led itself too far from what was the original plan. The great deluge of Lemuria. And she remembered only a portion of what had taken place. The purification of a civilization that was destructive and affecting the entire whole of the creation space. And as she cried these tears, and the river Nile filled and filled, she chose to use her magic. And she used her magic. I use my magic. I use my magic in a way to harness the waters and to eradicate the empire of Arcanon. Massive amounts of waters that killed off, destroyed, and intentionally removed information from the earth. Information that was used to release from those that could not hold the power, the wisdom, the anchoring of it. Destroyed certain aspects that needed to be recoded and remembered before they could be reclaimed on the earth. These templates, this information is returning, and there is a shift. Ni iseria kosho togoria tatakayanai. Di igeria tatakoyanai. De iseria goria tatakaria tatakaria. Di ishategeria utogoe takianai. No oso togoria tatakaya takayana. In this purification process that took place, that was not aligned with God's word, created a devastational effect on her consciousness as she realized what she had done. Through that process, she returned to the waters to surrender to God in forgiveness. This is the transition point that many know as where specific individual beings did choose purification in that moment. These gods that chose to purify moved on to what is known as the early beginning first points of ancient Greece, the gods and the goddesses of Rome. And they moved through the purification of the waters, restructured their vessels, and came into a place of attained remembrance, where they created and corrected the inversions that they could. This current point in time, we are moving through that exact phase, as we repeat history in the ensuring that we correct what has been to not recreate what was, through ownership, speaking the truth, and being exposed in our own illusion, so that we can stand as pillars of light. We change what has been and what will be. That as we are moving through this transition point, and the many transition points that we have experienced in different timelines, being that of Atlantis and Lemuria, and even the time of the Mayans and many others that I do not have direct connection to, as they were not my timeline. They were not my consciousness. Points of transition where you had an opportunity to ascend or descend the entire consciousness. Ancient Egypt was a seventh dimensional consciousness. The early parts of ancient Greece went into a ninth dimensional. At the end of ancient Greece, it radically dropped into a fifth dimensional expression, and that is when, at the end of these timelines, magic faded from the earth. It was no longer seen. You do not hear of gods and goddesses after these specific times. The vibration became too dense, and the confusion and the mutations of consciousness did not allow for this to continue. In the past, we have moved up and down in our consciousness level and our abilities with magic. There has been different opportunities. As we remember and start to bring forth the ninth dimensional reality that was into the now, by correcting the inversions of what we did to prevent and to purify, to ascend and evolve, we give an opportunity back to the now moment for the collective to choose and to allow for a shift from our current three-dimensional consciousness beyond the fifth dimensional. If there is enough beings that are choosing to look at their ownership pieces, to expose themselves, and to not demonize another for what they're experiencing, then there is an opportunity for this transition to even move beyond the fifth dimension. If the gods that have forgotten and continue to forget choose to remember and to anchor, and we all come onto the same page, we truly can create an experience of heaven on earth. I wish with all of my being that my dear brothers and sisters that have caused me, and I have caused myself so much pain for myself, them, and humanity, that they remember why they came. They remember what they have done, and that they reclaim the purity of their path and their mission forward. I desire nothing but all of us to rise together. Yet at this point in time, that is not the case. And it would be a distortion and an illusion to pretend that it is. And until that time comes, I will do whatever it takes in alignment with all beings to expose the distortions and allow for sovereignty of the human race. That I am here to speak the truth, and that any being that continues to demonize that of what I speak to, I just ask that you remember what it is that you're saying and what you're creating in the world. What is the energy that you are representing? And really, are you allowing for those that do not have the consciousness level and the ability to see, to awaken? Are you allowing them to start to see truth? Or are you manipulating their mind in the perspective of the distortion that you've decided about something because you're unwilling to own your expression? in that this moment, this time, this specific podcast is complete. If you would like to receive specific information around ancient Egypt, the gods, and communicate more with the I Am of Isis, please ensure that you place in the comments the questions that you have around ancient history and how you are confused around your own journey, to see if there is some common threads, analogies, and information that is required to be brought through. In this, the recognition is that we are transitioning out of the distortions of ancient Egypt, and we are embodying the higher expressions and the purity of the early stages of ancient Greece, Rome. And allow yourself to feel the difference of vibrational shift and the opportunities of what can be created now that maybe was forgotten and wiped from your memory. I love you. Thank you for receiving this podcast, this transmission. If you would like to support my mission, please donate to the PayPal link within my link tree. If you are feeling the call to journey your goddess, God self, there are different opportunities for man and woman that are available to work with me in a group container and individually based on who you be and what you're choosing in this moment. And if you enjoyed this transmission, please like, subscribe, and share with those that may get resonance through the codes, the frequencies, and the information that is shared in between.